Hi there, Reggie Green here. With that background information, let us continue here in podcast 2 with a practical exercise to get in contact with the body elemental. And again, I can only recommend that you at some point in your life, if you haven't done already, do some digging into your psychodynamics, and that means do therapy. And the reason why I suggest that is because when we begin to work with the body elemental and when we begin to work with all the different levels of what we are and what we have become and what we used to be and what is possible for us to be, then we have many different layers to investigate and be comfortable with working with so that we don't get afraid of what we will encounter. And psychological or psychodynamic work, where we work with our childhood memories, where we work with different forms of trauma from our childhood, the way we perceive the world, the hurt that we have got from being in the world, the encounters with the world, whether it's physical hurting that kind of the body has stored as cellular memory, or it's emotional hurting that we have got from encounters with others, as well as some of our own self-destructive thought processes that came in place as a kind of a self-protection mechanism, which we call self-defense system, not as in defending us against others, but technically defending ourselves from getting hurt again like that, creating ideas of that what we can and what we cannot do. These are typical psychological, and I'm here talking about psycho as in kind of the energies of your emotional field, but also psychological as part of your personality matrix, so it can preserve its narrative of who and what it is, going into the body elemental that taps into that one and also creates ideas of what it is and what is programmed to be in this life that is part of our personal story, the narratives we create around ourselves and how we would like to see ourselves and how we would like to see ourselves in the world. So that's part of the understanding of some of the psychodynamics too, as well as the thought processes that we are entertaining with this that can both lead to what we call patterns of exploration and outgoingness and being in tune with the world and wanting to be in tune with the world, or thought processes that are self-destructive and prohibits us from actually going out and showing who we truly are, or via the different experiences we have had to learn to shut us down before we even get close to our full potentials, just being a normal human being and not necessarily expanding into our higher order capacities. These are some of the things that we need to work with. So when we work with the mind field in meditation, where we learn to sit silently and observe the processes of the mind, and there are many mindfulness techniques out there you can look into and learn by. I don't really need to teach you about how to do meditation, but at some point when we talk about the inner work and the energy work that I advise you to do, then we are talking about meditative, energetic types of work that is not just about learning to be in the still point and silence your mind and investigate some of your processes of the mind, but actually going into altering and changing and transforming these patterns into a higher order equivalent where they become expansive and begin to connect to the radiation field. So that's part of the transformative work that goes with the transition sciences and the template sciences and the energy work. So that's a different way of working with your mind field as well as your emotional field. So we have the psychological therapeutic work with your emotional field that goes through this life and into past lives and beyond, and into the subconscious material, into the distortion planes, into the astral plane, and into the artificial fourth dimension, onward and so forth. And then we have the body features that goes with both the cellular memories, but also with the correct type of food, plant-based, of course, that is, we're not exploiting any life forms whatsoever to uphold our own physical vessel. So we are changing our eating habits. We are maintaining our body in whatever forms of exercise that is suitable for us, so it doesn't begin to degenerate and begin to go into entropy. We clean the body as much as we can in self-healing. And this is where it would be so neat and nice if I could teach people how to self-heal. Unfortunately for me, I'm kind of born with it, so it's like it's not something I have achieved later on. It's something I have recreated. And there's a difference there, because I knew I could do it because I have healing touch. I've been told that my entire life, that my touch is special. It makes people feel special. So I knew I could do something with my hands. And it became completely clear to me after I had a past life recollection as a Native American woman, a healer that worked with my hands, both with herbs as well as healing. And I understood that they had, in unfortunate demise of that version of me, ended her life in a group raping as well as killing, and the tore off her arms, literally saying, you're never ever going to do that again. So that was blocking my heart field from unfolding these capacities. So that was a past life trauma that blocked for one of my abilities in this life and this physical form due to the trauma that happened there. So I had to go through some contemplative energy, self-healing work in deep meditation, going into that life, literally positioning my body in meditative position, upright position, and then go into theta state, breaching the subconscious, going back into that life, activating my gamma level, focusing my energies, part of that timeline, part of that configuration I had at the time, literally in a way blending the current configuration with that past life configuration and adapting that one so I could destroy and demolish and evaporate whatever was unwholesome and unfruitful from that life, the trauma of that life, transfer whatever was usable and what still had viability to it into this physical form, and by that regaining my ability in this physical form. Of course, I now carry the memory of who I was that back then, including the memory of the rape. So that's the unfortunate side effect of working with our past lives and integrating what's left of the imprints of that past life on that timeline. But unfortunately for us, as we do so, we then collapse that timeline, and by that can become more unified in this life, bearing the memories of who and what we have been, including the unpleasant memories. So by that, it's important to get our body elemental to collaborate with us, because that's the one that's going to live in the environment with these memories. And if it fears trauma, not that we are to put ourselves in harm's way, but if it in any ways or forms have the coding, have the coding to not being able to carry the burden of the memories of who and what we used to be. That's why we get wide in between lives, because it has the coding for it, but it's not activated. It's dormant. So the moment you begin to activate your past life memories and your past life abilities, including what's connected to who and what you were, just think about the memories of this life, where some of them can be pretty burdensome, and they have a tendency to pop up in unwanted situations where they then release their electrochemical content and makes you respond in radical ways for whatever's in front of you, and perhaps not the most fruitsome ways of responding to whatever's in front of you. You also understand that the moment you open the packages, the quanta of your past life information streams, including the light coding that goes with that, you can figure out that that will demand a more mature psychological structure of you, where you will respond to it still. There will still be projections. There will still be the rising of these phenomena. There will still be the unfolding of this into the current life in interaction with others that triggers it. And you will perhaps respond in ways that are not conducive to you or your partner or your friends or your families or whatever it is. But you will learn how to clear it out, administer it, balance it, knowing the principle 3, what you participate in, you give energy. Knowing principle 4, what you send out of energy will be mirrored back to you, so you can work to heal it and repair it. And again, if you say, how am I to learn to heal? Well, I can only recommend you to then do some healing courses under some of the avian factions that are still present on our reality field, such as Reiki or something else. Whatever that is, just be mindful that there might also be factions such as the transhuman agenda involved in that, and there might be dark ones involved in that, which when I did after I had activated myself through the deep work with my past life, including forcing myself literally to break down the barrier that was inserted between this life, it's kind of we call the veil that is in the emotional field that prevents us from accessing past life memories, breaking that down in intense intensive inner work where I pushed myself way beyond what most people would do, because I have got the warrior template. So I'm head on with whatever I want to achieve. I go head on and I go for it, no matter what the costs are, including defending myself and transforming and using the fires and whatever I can get to the point which most people don't have, because the body elemental is not working with them. And in a way, my body elemental was always there to protect me in a positive way. For some odd reason, it had either gaps in its protection technology or the prohibiting technology, or perhaps because my genetics are a different variety that goes further back before the reseeding, or perhaps because I already, my original configuration, have the ability to connect the nows into a code stream that carries the memory base of the code streams that is connected to within the original holographic energetic network of our reality. I don't know. But what I do know is that already as a kid, I got insights. I had protection mechanisms. In where I lived as a child, we used to have one cat at a time. I usually say cats because we had more than one, but not at the same time. But they were there to protect me. They comforted me. They healed my peripheral nervous system. They made me relax. They were always sleeping, each cat one at a time. I would sleep with that cat. It would be completely cuddling up to me on my stomach area in front of me, or behind my legs or behind my back, and it would then purr, and it would give these vibrations of kindness and caring and nurturing, because we had female cats. So it would literally lying there purring that kindness energy into my body. When I was sad or when I was upset, they would come and calm me down. They will position themselves on my lap. They would crawl on my chest. They would cuddle up around my head or wherever I needed the healing. So my cats helped me. Today, most cats, unfortunately, are tied to the underworld, which they are as well. But these cats, they were highly imbued with what we could call nature spirit energy, because I was also a nature child. So I was a lot out in nature. I had the butterflies positioning themselves on me. I would sit close to a tree and it would emanate its energy into me. And I attribute that to both my past life as a Native American, but also as I have discovered further on, this body elemental that I have in this physical form is technically not my own, but it belongs to a previous female that I am as well, because I integrated that in me as well as I integrate my higher order levels. So that's why I kind of say, well, it's not me, but it is me, right? But that's the version that has been reincarnated inside this system that my holographic energetic architecture has been attached to after I came in 1959, or ended up in the situation where they could put me into this human form more correctly, because I've been here previous times and I don't have a physical form like this. I normally have my own internet operating vessel. So that's why I'm saying they put me into a body that's not technically mine, quote unquote. None of us have our own body, and gave me a body elemental that was technically not mine, but linked me up to that one. And by that became part of that body elemental memory base, including the physical forms that body elemental had been part of, which we can then say are my past lives, or the body elemental's past lives. Having had past lives as medicine women, as well as women living in the forests, a woman each time only as one, living in a forest, working with herbs, working with spirits, working with all of the energies of this reality field that is typically tied to the Pleiadian projects. And why was that possible? Because in my original form, I was part of the Pleiadian system for a very long time, learning about some of the new sciences that were and technologies that were being utilized as part of the reseeding program, as we decided within the councils that that was supposed to unfold as a reseeding after the fall of Atlantis. I did not participate in the decision of the fall of Atlantis. I was called in later on. I was in an adjacent reality field in a different fourth cycle progression pillar, as part of the Pillar Project at the time, and I traveled back in time, so to speak, to become part of the outpost of the Pleiadian project that was supposed to unfold here, and first participated in the Pleiadian system to be able to unfold some of the sciences here. They had already made the new types of regenesis programs, and when I came in, that was the latter part of it. Actually is I would say, the few cycles before the Orion Pleiadian Wars, where the Orions took over the Pleiadian system and led to the complete collapse of also the fourth progression cycle that rippled into the fourth progression cycle inside our reality field and allowed the Orions to enter into this system. So these are all parts of some of the galactic history. So we all have these weird metal things. Some have their own TGs that is actually connected to the original Regenesis programs that they became part of as the Regenesis programs after the fall of Atlantis. Others have a TGs that were administered or attributed to them because it had similarity in the original gene codes as they came as part of the colonizing factions. Others have been given a TG or an elemental, body elemental, that is so dissimilar to their original configuration as part of the imprisonment programs, and others, that's the punishment programs, and others have got a body elemental that is in alignment with the enslavement programs that are controlling the original holographic energetic template to the harvesting programs. So we're here on many different configurations. We can't just say one fit for all. So we need to learn to communicate with our body elemental. And how do we do that? Well, first and foremost, as I talked about my cats that helped me to relax and created this calmness in my body. So there needs to be a calmness of mind and a calmness of your body. And as a kid, it was typical for me when I came home from school. I came home, nobody was there. I came home alone. All I had was my cats. And I would put myself on the couch, and we had the couch position so I could lie on the couch and look out in the sky. So I would lie there on the couch for an hour, just literally contemplating and meditating and with open eyes. Just looking at the clouds and just emptying my head and just completely relaxing and getting rid of all the noise from school, the stress from school, or the people's imprints. It was a very difficult thing for me to go to school because I was so sensitive due to my cats, but also due to my original configuration. So I was more sensitive than other kids. So I learned to retract, I learned to protect myself, and did different techniques of either lying, relaxing on the couch, looking at the sky, or going out in nature, go on my bicycle, drive out in nature, sit there for hours. I would do a lunch packet, do some bread and some water, and take that with me so I wouldn't get hungry, use my bicycle, go to remote areas and just sit there and relax in summertime. In early spring, I would sit out in the garden and absorb the sun, covered in a blanket. Or I would, in wintertime, I would go out doing ice skating or going out for walks in the snow. So I had this inbuilt, this is what you need to heal yourself. And I was observant of food. Actually, I didn't like meat, but of course I did. That was part of my generation. But I loathed it. I found it very disgusting. And if it had been today, I would naturally said I can't eat meat, which I can't today. So it was easy for me to transition out of it because as a kid, I already found it utterly disgusting. But I had to eat what was there, and I knew in my childhood home, I need to stay here until I can move on my own and become 30, and then I can begin to live my life as I wanted, which is the natural releasing that should be as part of the enslavement programs. But unfortunately, that got hijacked too and taken away from me, so I never got that freedom, but were pushed into other timelines, as many others were as part of the prelude up to the 2001 collapse of this original timeline, pushing the entire planet into the artificial 2001 timeline that then came under the artificial fifth cycle and the dark ones and what we call the fall of Atlantis resurrected lineages that wanted to regenerate new Atlantis inside this reality field, connecting us to the dark galactic core, which they succeeded in doing so in 2017, which we're now working our way out of because we have parallel future civilizations that are here trying to avoid that timeline to become the predominant one and are doing whatever they can to link us up to other parallel systems that have what we could call energy configurations that do not tie us so strongly to the abyss as what happened with the 2001 9/11 event. So we are here again talking about different dynamics that the body elemental need to be reconfigured. And again, as I said, I would love to teach you all these kind of things if I could in that manner, but I already had it as a natural thing to me. And you know how it is. If I asked you, how would you teach a person to poop? It's part of the body, right? It's part of who you are. It works in its own way. So you don't really know how to teach it. So that's why I'm not going in and saying, well, I will teach people from scratch how to heal. I can go in and say people who already have healing abilities, who already have learned it somehow and activated it on their own, I can show them and add additionally to how they can use these healing modalities and what they really should use it for, and how they're used to reconfigure your biofield, emotional field, and mental field, how the different forms of hand positions can connect to the emotional field, changing the vibration of it by changing the vibration of the code systems that runs in the central nervous system, as well as that runs in the vibrational field as light codes, and these more extended versions of it, which is some of the things I'm working on if I am to do an extended healer education at some point. Right now I got offered on the Higher Order Density 1 Work Institute a mentor education and a mediator, because that's also what's needed when we begin to talk about the future and how we are more and more of us are opening up to extraterrestrial contact and encounters. And there I want to teach people first, okay, when that happens, how you to address that, how you to deal with that, because that's also been part of my life since I was a kid. I've had all of these different forms of energetic encounters from both the astral plane and the other realms and the artificial fourth, artificial fifth, and other dimensions and what have you. So I kind of got this full elaborated reality, inner reality perception that's already there, that already were imbued into me as a kid. So I began early, and then of course prohibited and pushed into different timelines and had to work my way out. So my knowledge, everything I share here is what I've experienced in my own life, but I kind of had the inbuilt understanding of how to do it. So my TG was not as worn out as many of you have the TG I'm here referring to, your body elemental. Many of you have a very worn down body elemental. Many of you have body ailments. I'm beginning to get that too, because what has happened the last 5 years to my body elemental, even though I repair it and repair it and repair it, because I went to Australia, because I got reconfigured in an unwholesome way for me, because Denmark is now falling under some of the transhuman agendas, because of the link up to the dark galactic core, because of all sorts of circumstances in our reality field, including the last 5 years between 2020 and 2023, where we had this whole kind of, you know what I'm talking about here, that changed humanity via different forms of insertions of alien technology, both via crisscrossing on the sky, but also via different forms of programs that led people to medicate themselves, let me put it this way, so we don't get into trouble, that led to a breakdown of their molecular structure, which then affected the body elemental and began to break that one down, because they want to change that one into something else that links up to a different reality configuration. So with that, we begin to understand, okay, we are here up against time when we talk about the inner work, and we talk about the higher order senses, and when we talk about the healing work, and we talk about the reconfiguration work of our body elemental, including the reconfiguration work to adapt to the outer domain original holographic energetic network, because the sun has transformed from being a density 2 artificial density 2 artificial fourth dimensional type of sun into its original density 1 configuration, which for now presents itself as in bursting out an enormous amount of the old artificial density 2 energies, which are then they are calling it a very active solar cycle 25, but it's going to be even more active, which are then pumping an enormous amount of energy into the ionosphere, into the magnetic field, which then begins to ring as an overheated ionosphere, overheated magnetic field, which then influences all of the currents and the Schumann resonance that affects all of the natural water currents in our oceans, that heats up the planet, aside from what we are using as fossil fuels and what have you, which we know it's the greenhouse gases and methane gases, which we are producing. We are at the same time having this over ionization of of our magnetic field, which leads to a complete breakdown of all of the ecosystems on our planet. So that's part of some of the things that we are to work with as well. That influences since the human resonances connect to our emotional field, that's part of the old astral barrier, that's part of the prohibiting technologies that are running the TDs in the physical form, that and by that are affecting our, what we call it, sorry about that, there's another noise outside, affecting our body elemental, creating different forms of vibrations that are not really what we call conducive for the reprogramming that happened of the body elemental, as it could become part of what we call the artificial density 2, artificial fourth dimension, prohibiting technologies and colonization programs. So we're here beginning to say, okay, back to the whole question, how do I communicate with my body elemental? And again, 2 steps you have to do. You have to do psychotherapy so you know who and what you are and how you respond emotionally to different challenges. So you know your trauma, you know your history, you know this is what happens, this is what happens when I feel this is how I respond to feeling that. I don't know if you can hear this very low frequency rumbling that is happening. I don't know what's going on out either in the neighbor or someone else, but it's definitely making a very deep vibrational pattern compared to the plane that began above. Now I'm getting something from beneath, which is interesting, which again throws me off, because when I tap into this information, I'm taking using my vibrational field, because I'm working on the level of the body elemental. So I would say something in reality is preventing me from doing this material, which is again interesting how the prohibiting technologies not only administers our physical reality inside what we say the body perception and the body existence, but it also administers the outer reality via different types of programs, which is another level of information I could go into, because I have a lot of very interesting alternate reality modulations happening in as part of my life. Many have seen this with the event program, that when they recalibrated our entire reality field under the transhuman agenda in 2017 as the Mandela effect, right? Where we suddenly had, oh, this is how it normally looks. Well, it doesn't look like that anymore, right? Okay, so back to the body elemental, and I will here say, okay, we have got parts of, and now there's the plane back. So I'm really being struck with different forms of prohibiting me from doing this. So with that said, I will end this podcast here, and I will go into that work in the next one. Thank you.